This week's episode of Steve's Outdoor Adventures is brought to you by Pendleton Ammunition, loading ammo, one round at a time. Alaska is about the most incredible, untamed landscape left in North America. It captures the imagination and dreams of hunters around the world. Last year, I came up to Alaska on the 9th of September and then flew into the backcountry on the 10th and hunted the 10-day moose season in this area. And while I passed up a legal moose, I went home unsuccessful, but I saw the potential for the area and everyone else had killed moose. I decided that this year I would return and only hunt the last 5 days of the season. That I thought would give me the best chance not only for success, but allow me to focus my efforts on hunting what was the best rut dates in the season. I'm gonna go straight up to the mountain, up to Spike Camp. I'll be the only one there when I get there initially, but it'll be nice to get out away from civilization and get back to basics, get back to hunting. One of the reasons why we're so successful in Alaska is that we're able to access very remote places where you can only land a supercut. So we flew from Port Allsworth into the backcountry. It was about 45 minutes in an airplane, and it's just scenic. Flying over the river bottoms and the timbered valleys, I knew that I was going to a hot spot. It's a place that we had a client tag a big bull the year before, and I was eager to get into camp. And landing in camp after about 45 minutes and putting my feet on the ground, I probably was more excited than I had been in a long time for one of my hunting trips. So last year we came up and I hunted my butt off, and I know the potential that's here because I also brought Danny and Garth MacArthur with me and Floyd Brown, and all three of them killed big moose. Floyd killed a 68-inch bull that easily goes deep into the Boone and Crockett record book. In fact, he got a grizzly bear too. We also had Danny MacArthur kill about a 60-inch bull, and I think Garth's was 61 inches. These were big, good-looking bulls, and I knew that this was why I needed to come back, why I needed to hunt this area with these guides, because I felt like the odds were in my favor that I wouldn't go home empty-handed 2 years in a row. When I flew into camp, I met up with Aaron Langleyers. Now, Aaron and I have known each other for years. In fact, we did a brown bear hunt in Alaska. We killed a big bear, and Aaron and I have stayed in touch for years. And I was really excited when I found out that I was gonna get to hunt with Aaron and spend another week in the backcountry with him, because he's truly a world-class guide. Once Aaron and I were flown into camp and we got camp all set up, you know, once again, it's September 15th. I know that the rut is in the air. I can feel it, and I can hardly wait. This week, I'm hunting with my Bergara Premier Series rifle, chambered in .300 Winchester Magnum, and topped with the Burris Eliminator 3 laser scope. The rifle has gone through load development at Pendleton Ammunition, and I'm shooting the Barnes 200 grain LRX bullets. The rifle is also equipped with the Dead Air Sandman suppressor. Well, first morning out, and the anticipation's super high. And how you hunt this country is you get up high and you glass these big valleys and you do some calling, because what'll happen is you'll spot moose 2 miles away. You might start calling and one of them will pop out of the timber, and it gives you a chance to see things at a distance and let them develop in front of you. On this particular morning, we hadn't been hunting for 10 minutes, and we spot a cow moose across the valley feeding in the open, and I'm just positive, just sure that on September 16th, there's gotta be a bull somewhere right behind me. We worked on that cow for a while, and I just couldn't believe it. You know, here we are at the beginning of the rut, and there's not a bull anywhere around her. We did some more calling and glassed there for probably an hour and a half. Nothing developed. So We decided to work our way back around the mountain with the wind in our face. It was going to be about a 4-mile walk. And at the end of the day, the plan is we'd end up at camp, but there's a whole bunch of fingers, timbered draws that feed up. And by working with the wind in our face and doing a bunch of calling, we were hopeful that we'd find a bull before the day was over.
This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Bergara Rifles, a passion for precision, every barrel, every rifle. This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Burris Optics. Find what matters.
This is a perfect morning, really.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, wind's coming out of the right direction. Now we can go down to the river bottom.
It's perfect.
Yeah, we're gonna work a bunch of rutting grounds down along the river, do a lot of calling back and forth. We gotta go real quiet though. I mean, it's loud down there, so you've got to be really quiet. Use the river noise to kind of cover what movement noise we make, but lots of cow calls, probably some bull rut sounds of smashing trees. See if we can't lure one of those big buggers out on the edge of the water.
The decision was that because the wind direction was right, we would drop down about 800 to 1,000 vertical feet to the river bottom. As we dropped down into the river bottom, we were calling and raking some brush, and we just felt like it was a matter of time before we would see a bull just magically appear on the opposite side of the river. By mid-morning, the sun had come up, it was warm, and it stayed that way until just before dark.
Man, we woke up to some different weather this morning. It's socked in, raining, but now it's moose hunting weather. I mean, yesterday was hot and sunny. It might be pleasant for us in terms of just laying around and watching river bottom, but this is moose hunting weather. This is what the moose want to get up and walk around in, and hopefully we can get down there and get some responses from them.
The plan was to drop back down into the river bottom because it's just great habitat. The wind direction is right. There's a big bull moose down in there somewhere. We dropped down there not only to hunt and call across the river, but we needed to look for a place to cross the river. We could see big meadows and ideal habitat on the other side of the river. And if we could find a place to cross, then we could go right into the bedroom of where we believed these moose were living. We called and called and called. We called some more, and we got no responses. We didn't get any action. And this was shocking because this was pristine moose habitat. And we just felt like at any moment we could get that reply, and it just didn't happen. Once we found the crossing, our spirits were elevated yet again. You know, it's like, all right, now we get to cross the river. Now we get to go into moose country. Now we're gonna go right into where they're living. We couldn't lure them to the edge of the river. We just felt like it was gonna happen once we could get over there. As we moved deeper and deeper into this meadow and timber pocket area that was just pristine moose habitat, Aaron would call, and then I would call for a while. He'd smash some trees. We just felt like we needed to keep moving up further and further, deeper and deeper into this country, because I don't think anybody had ever hunted this as aggressively as we were, at least not in several years. And we wanted to get aggressive. Time's running out in this hunt. We've only got a few days in this season left. We need to press in there and try to make something happen. It was late afternoon, and after hours of working that valley bottom, we finally heard it. It sounded like legs in the water because we were coming up on the stream. And then it sounded like something like walking through the brush. So we got set up. And I felt like it was gonna happen any second, and then everything just went quiet. We didn't hear anything anymore, and it just vanished. We didn't get to see it, but we knew it was there, but the wind probably swirled and gave away our location, and it just didn't happen. So from there we decided we'd go back across the river, climb up the mountainside and glass down, see if we couldn't locate that moose, and then work our way back up to the upper meadows and fingers that we had hunted the first day, and then back to camp before dark.
We've done everything that was required of us, except find a moose. Tomorrow's a new day, and today's not over yet.
So while I was a little discouraged, I still had a lot of hope left as I went to bed that night.
This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Marathon Seat Covers. We've got you covered. This segment is sponsored by Adventure Armory. Rifle, scope, and ammunition packages shipped, ready to ship.
We woke up that morning and it was 10 or 15 degrees colder than the day before. It's clear, crisp, and cold. Ideal hunting conditions, a light breeze blowing from the right direction, and we made the decision to go back to the valley where we had seen the cow moose on the first day of our hunt. Our hope was that a bull had moved in there and joined her at some point in time, because now we're 3 days deeper into the rut. It was September 19th, it's got to be happening. Aaron's calling, we're glassing, and then we finally spot him down in the bottom of the valley. All by himself. Sure enough, it's a bull moose. Unfortunately, he's a little small. Our hope is that there's a bigger bull in there somewhere, so we're gonna keep calling, we're gonna keep glassing, and yeah, the little bull's coming. He's closing the distance on us, but the whole time, we're glassing to see if his big brother is somewhere nearby or close behind. He closes the distance to within bow range. It's beautiful. But his big brother, uncle, or cousin did not appear behind him. And while he got downwind of us, got our scent, and ran off, we continued to work into the valley with the wind in our favor. And by midday, we realized that there's not another moose in this pocket or valley. It could happen at any moment. One could travel in here, but we're not getting any game. And I sent a text message out on my DeLorme inReach to Jeremy, kind of explaining that hunting had been very slow, and he offered to move us. This is risky because we're gonna burn half a day of hunting during the peak of the rut to locate to another valley.
We're moving. Gives us 1 day. Let's hope we get dropped in a good spot, get on a good bull. Gotta make it happen. Going to Jeremy now.
And we get over there, get it all set up, hoping that tomorrow is the day that it all comes together, because tomorrow's all we got. Tomorrow is it, man.
This is a Hail Mary. We could land in another spot and not see a moose. I didn't know what was gonna happen, but on the last flight of the day, as I'm being flown into this camp, and I realized that this is a much bigger valley. I don't know, I just had a feeling that something good was gonna happen.
Wow. Well, if you have to spend one last day out hunting, this looks like a pretty good spot to do it. What a view.
Once camp was set up, I grabbed my spotting scope and binoculars and went over to the edge of this big valley and just sat down and started glassing. And I hadn't been looking for 5 minutes when I spotted a massive bull moose. I got the spotting scope on him, shot a little bit of phone scope video of him. He was exactly what I was looking for. But I think the airplane had buggered him a little bit because he was going out of the valley, climbing up the mountainside, and going the opposite direction. And if he kept going that way, he was going to be way out of our range by the next morning. After watching that bull leave the valley, I was getting ready to go to bed, and I heard the plane coming back one more time just before dark, and Jeremy landed and dropped off another guide. His moose hunter had tagged out, and rather than call it a season, he asked if he could join us, and we got to meet Travis. And it turned out to be just the right addition to our team.
This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Pendleton Ammunition. Loading bullets, one round at a time.
If you'd like to book this week's adventure for yourself, give our office a call. We will gladly take your calls, answer your questions, and help you book the hunting or fishing adventure of a lifetime. You know, the next morning I woke up way before daylight. I was just laying there in my sleeping bag, listening to the rain on top of the tent. I had this sense of urgency. It's the last day of moose season. This is my last chance to make it happen.
Right, you go a couple days and not seeing anything, not even hearing anything. Everyone's starting to think, geez, what's wrong here? So getting a response, seeing an animal, and then getting them riled up and coming into the calls, which is exactly what we want. You know, that gives you some hope and gets everyone back in the game, excited. Okay, a little rejuvenation of spirits and a little hope it's gonna get done.
It's a pretty good sign that the rut is on strong when you're getting moose action. You know, the day before, we called in that small bull to archery range. Now we've called another small bull in. They're rutting. They're mimicking what they've seen the bigger bulls do, so you know they're around. And this other bull, he's getting quiet. We're moving in on him, but he stopped grunting, and we don't know exactly where he is. And that's when Travis shows up. He's out of breath. He's obviously fairly wound up, and he's got some very interesting phone scope footage. Sure enough, Travis had spotted a big bull moose. And that phone scope footage might have been shaky because it was windy on the other side of the hill, but that footage brought on an adrenaline rush that fueled a mountain climb and a 2-mile hike all the way around the face into that other valley to get a look at this bull. Once we got above the location where Travis had last seen the bull, we split up. Travis moved down valley about 100 yards and started glassing and calling. And Aaron moved about 50 yards uphill from me and started glassing and calling. And I got set up. And that's exactly when it happened. He popped out of the brush right in front of us, right below me on the hillside, and was coming right at us. I wanted him to get as close as he possibly could. I wanted to soak the moment in. I wanted him to be at point blank range. And as he worked his way up the hill toward us, I had the crosshairs on him. My heart was pounding out of my chest, and I was really excited. I put the crosshairs right where I wanted the bullet to hit, and I squeezed the trigger. And when I heard the click, I didn't know what had happened, but I decided I would go ahead and just raise the bolt, set it down again, and squeeze the trigger. And when I heard a click for the second time, I made the decision, with this moose looking right at me, to chamber a fresh round as quickly as possible and try to get off a good clean shot.
Ooh. My firing pin's stuck.
I had been in rain and cold weather in Alaska, and while I had wiped the barrel of my gun down and kind of the front of the action, I failed to take care of the part of the bolt where the firing pin goes down, hits the primer. Some rust built up in there. Over the course of 5 days, it got to the point where when I pulled the trigger, that firing pin could not hit the primer. But I learned a valuable lesson. When we got over to the edge of the hill where he had gone down, we started to find the blood. We could see where he'd gone down a few times, and we followed this blood trail down the hill, probably about 75 yards, and I looked back into the alders, and sure enough, that's where we found him. That's when I finally felt like it had happened. You know, I could just feel the weight of 2 years of moose hunting lifted off of my shoulders. The old bull was a giant, an old moose, well past his prime, and I was proud to have him.
This is a much better bull than I probably deserve or even expected on the last day of the hunt. I can hardly wait to come back to Alaska. It's my favorite place to be. It's my favorite place to hunt. And this is why it is tops on my list.
This has been an epic adventure that ended with the monumental task of getting hundreds of pounds of moose meat out of the backcountry. A cooler full of meat for my freezer, and hundreds of pounds of meat for the families back in Port Allsworth. This hunt was special. The good weather and the bad weather, the friendships that were developed, the highs and the lows, and then the feeling of victory at the end as I was able to put my hands on this massive old bull moose. It's a hunt that I'll never forget. In fact, if you'd like to book your own guided big game hunting adventure, maybe it's for a moose hunt in Alaska, or an elk hunt in Colorado, or a fishing trip in Alaska or British Columbia, give our office a call. We'll always take the time to answer your questions and help you book the hunting or fishing trip of a lifetime. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week's show. But please remember to join us again next week when we bring you another exciting episode of Steve's Outdoor Adventures.